The forest lay under a heavy moon, its silver light spilling across the twisted trees and misted ground. Somewhere deep inside, a pack stirred, moving silently through shadows. The air smelled of wet earth and old magic, and the distant howl of wolves echoed like a warning. Tonight was not an ordinary night. Tonight, a ritual would decide life and death. Elara walked barefoot along the cold, damp path. Her hands trembled, not from the chill, but from fear. She had been chosen to be the sacrifice. Every member of her pack knew it. Every whispered word, every lowered gaze, every silence spoke of it. She was meant to die so the pack could survive. For years, her family had tried to ignore the old curse, a shadow that had lingered in the bloodline. But the forest demanded its tribute. The elders had spoken. When the moon turns red, the pack must offer one of their own. And now, the red moon had risen, and the pack had chosen her. Elara's heart pounded as she reached the edge of the clearing. The altar was there. Ancient stone carved with strange runes that glowed faintly under the moonlight. Around it, the pack members stood in a circle, their eyes heavy with sorrow. None of them looked at her with joy. Even the children had been sent away, leaving only the watchers. Kael, the oldest alpha brother, stepped forward. His broad shoulders and sharp gaze made him seem untouchable. Yet tonight, there was something else in his eyes: guilt and a quiet sadness. "Elara," he said, his voice deep, echoing in the silence. "You are the bravest of us all. This is the only way." Elara's chest tightened. "Bravest?" she whispered, almost to herself. "I am not brave. I am afraid. I want to live." A murmur passed through the pack. Fear was natural, but defiance was dangerous. She knew the rules. She had been raised to obey. Yet, somehow, her heart refused to accept it. Suddenly, the wind shifted. From the shadows, two more figures emerged. Dorian, the second alpha, his eyes sharp and calculating, moved with a predator's grace. And Riven, the youngest, enigmatic and dark, whose presence made the air itself feel heavier. They were her pack's leaders, her guardians, and tonight, something more rivals over her fate. Each alpha regarded her differently. Kael's concern was plain. Dorian's mind seemed to be calculating odds, strategies, outcomes. Riven, however, was unreadable. His gaze lingered longer, darker, almost as if he were trying to see into her soul. "Elara," Dorian said, stepping closer. "You do not understand the forces at play. This is more than sacrifice. Your life carries power. Power that can save or destroy. The pack needs you." Elara shook her head. "I do not want power. I want to live." Riven finally spoke, his voice low and smooth, carrying a weight that made her heart skip. Because power does not ask for permission, and fear does not stop what is coming. Before she could answer, a howl pierced the night, rising above the whispering trees. The pack members stiffened. Even the wind seemed to pause. Something in the forest had heard them, the ancient forces that had waited for this night. Kael's eyes darkened. "Stay close. Whatever comes, do not run alone." But Elara could not move. She was rooted to the ground, not just by fear, but by the strange pull she felt the forest itself calling to her. Something deep in her chest, a fire she had never known, stirred and whispered. And then, as if on cue, the altar pulsed, faintly glowing beneath the red moon. "Enough," Riven said, his voice like steel. "This ritual is not meant to be simple. The forest tests its offerings. It wants more than obedience. It wants courage, strength, choice." Elara's eyes widened. Choice? Could she really choose? Or was that only an illusion? The three alphas moved around her, forming a silent triangle, their energy almost tangible. The forest seemed to recognize them. The wind swirling, leaves rustling in urgent whispers. It was then that she realized something terrifying and wonderful. She was not just the sacrifice. She was something else. Something dangerous. Something powerful. Kale reached out, his hand hovering near hers. Elara, trust me. Let me guide you. Dorian stepped forward, tilting his head, eyes gleaming. No. She must understand. She must see the consequences. Survival is not always mercy. Riven did not move. He simply watched, shadows playing across his face. You will see soon enough, he said. But what you will see may change everything. Before she could respond, the ground trembled. The pack tensed, and the trees seemed to bend. In the windless night, something massive stirred in the depths of the forest. A shadow moved larger than any wolf, darker than the night itself. The air grew thick, heavy, almost suffocating. Elara! Kale shouted, his protective instincts flaring. Move! But she could not move. Her feet felt stuck, and her heart raced faster than it had ever raced before. The shadow leapt from the trees. A wolf, unlike any she had ever seen. Its fur was black as the void, eyes glowing with the fire of ancient magic. It growled a deep, resonating sound that shook the ground. The pack formed a protective circle, fangs bared, claws ready. Kyle, Dorian, and Riven stepped forward, their forms shifting slightly, muscles thickening, senses sharpening. The fight was not only physical, it was spiritual, primal. The forest itself seemed to watch, judging. Elara, now! Kale roared, and in a burst of instinct, she broke free from her fear, moving behind him. The alphas clashed with the shadow, their powers intertwining in flashes of light and dark. The forest alive with their struggle. In that moment, Elara felt something awaken inside her. A spark, faint but fierce, like a flame long buried. Her hands tingled, her vision sharpened, and for a moment, she saw the world differently. The shadow, the alphas, the altar, they were all part of a pattern, a design she had never noticed before. And she realized she was not helpless. She could fight, in her own way. As the three alphas struck together, the shadow shrieked and dissolved into mist. The wind died, the forest stilled, and a hush fell over the clearing. Elara's chest heaved, her heart still racing. The alphas turned to her, each breathing heavily, eyes wide with something she could not name: pride, fear, awe. Kale's voice broke the silence. You have power. Power we did not expect. Dorian's lips curled slightly. She is more than a sacrifice. She is something the forest itself recognizes. Riven's shadowed face softened, almost imperceptibly. Elara looked around, stunned. She had not only survived the ritual, she had changed it. She had survived the choice, the fight, and had glimpsed the power within her. But the forest still whispered, still watched, and still waited. And she knew, deep in her bones, that this was only the beginning. Her heart pounded with fear and wonder. And she realized that she was no longer simply a girl about to be sacrificed. She was a force the pack had never seen. A spark in the darkness that could challenge the oldest laws. And the three alphas, Kael, Dorian, and Riven, each looked at her not with anger, but with a hunger for what she could become. As the red moon hung high in the sky, Elara made a silent vow. She would survive. She would choose her path. And she would never allow anyone, not even the pack, to decide her fate again. But even as she made this vow, she sensed the forest shifting around her. Something older, darker, and far more dangerous than any alpha watched from the shadows. The night was not done with her. And as the alphas closed in, each asserting their claim in silent, tense ways, Elara knew one thing for certain. Her life had changed forever. And in the heart of the cursed forest, the true battle for survival, for power, and for love was only beginning. The forest was alive in a way that frightened and fascinated Elara. Every step she took seemed to echo in the shadows. Every rustle of leaves like a whisper, calling her name. After the night of the ritual, nothing felt the same. She had survived, but survival was only the beginning. She could feel the forest testing her, urging her to discover what she truly was and what she could become. Kale walked beside her, steady and protective. He was silent most of the way, but his presence was a comfort. She could feel his strength, like a shield, though it did not hide the worry in his eyes. Dorian followed slightly behind, calculating every step, his gaze never leaving her. And Riven walked apart, always on the edge of sight, his dark presence, both frightening and magnetic. The three alphas had saved her life, but they had also claimed a stake in her destiny. Elara could feel it in the tension of the air, in the way their eyes lingered on her longer than necessary, in the subtle power they exerted over the world around them. Each had their reasons, and each was dangerous in its own way. "This forest does not forgive weakness," Dorian said suddenly, breaking the silence. His voice was calm, but firm, like the edge of a blade. "You must understand, Elara. Your power, whatever it is, could either protect you or destroy everything around you." Elara shook her head. "I don't understand it," she said, her voice small. "All I know is that I don't want anyone controlling me anymore. Not the pack. Not the forest. Not even you." Dorian's eyes flickered with surprise, but he said nothing. Kale glanced at her with concern. "It's not about control," he said softly. "It's about survival. And I don't want to lose you. Not tonight, not ever." Riven, as always, stayed silent. His presence, dark and still, made her skin tingle. She didn't know what he wanted, or why he watched her with that strange intensity. But she knew he was waiting for something, waiting for her to show him what she was capable of. The path led them to a ruined temple hidden deep in the forest. The stones were cracked and overgrown with vines, and strange symbols were carved into the walls. This was a place of power, older than any pack, older than any rule. The alphas stopped at the entrance, and the forest seemed to lean closer, listening. "You will rest here," Kale said. "At least for the night. The forest tests those who carry power. You must be ready." Quote, but rest was impossible. Elara could feel the pulse of the old magic in the walls, in the stones, in the air itself. She was not the same girl who had walked into the clearing a night ago. Something had awakened inside her, a fire she could not control. Every time she tried to calm it, the energy surged stronger, like a river breaking through a dam. Dorian approached her, studying her face. "Your power is tied to the forest," he said. "You reacted instinctively last night. That was no ordinary survival. You can control it, if you learn how, but it will not be easy. Krisit, Kronine, Krisitit, 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 Krisitit." Elara frowned. "Why me?" she asked, her voice trembling. "Why am I the one with this gift?" Kale knelt beside her. "Because you are meant for more than sacrifice," he said simply. "You have a strength inside you that the pack has never seen, and we need to help you discover it before it is too late." Riven's voice finally came from the shadows. "Strength can be dangerous," he said, "especially when it is new, wild, and untamed. If you do not learn to control it, it will destroy you and anyone who stands near you." Elara turned to him, meeting his dark eyes. For a moment, she saw not just danger, but a strange understanding. "Then teach me," she said, her voice firmer than she expected. "Teach me before it is too late." The three alphas exchanged glances. Kale's expression was determined. Dorian's eyes were sharp and calculating. Riven's gaze remained unreadable, but there was a hint of approval in it. Together, they led her into the temple, deeper into the shadows, where the magic of the forest felt strongest. The nights that followed were a test of body, mind, and spirit. Kale trained her in the ways of combat, teaching her how to move with strength and precision. Every strike, every step, every dodge was a lesson in control. Dorian guided her mind, helping her understand the patterns of magic, how to sense the energy of the forest, and how to use it without losing herself. And Riven pushed her to the edge. He forced her to confront her fears, to face the darkness inside her, and to trust herself when the world seemed against her. Each day was exhausting, each night filled with tension. The three alphas' rivalry simmered beneath the surface. Kale wanted to protect her at all costs. Dorian wanted her to master her power for the pack's sake. Riven wanted to see what she could become when she embraced her own strength. And Alara was caught between them, not just surviving their tests, but learning how to navigate the complex emotions and desires they stirred in her. One evening, as the red moon rose again, the forest whispered warnings of danger. Alara had been training all day, her body sore, her mind exhausted. The three alphas stood nearby, their senses alert, their eyes scanning the darkness. Suddenly, a howl erupted from the shadows, closer and louder than before. The air grew colder, the wind sharper. The trees shook, and from the darkness, a pack of spectral wolves emerged. Their eyes glowed with an unnatural light, their forms half shadow, half beast. Kale stepped in front of Alara, his stance protective. "Do not move," he commanded, his voice strong. "Stay close. We can handle this together." Dorian's hands glowed faintly, tracing patterns in the air. Magic shimmered around him as he prepared to strike. "These are not ordinary wolves," he said. "They are the forest's guardians, testing her power again. She must act." Alara felt the surge inside her. The fire that had awakened weeks ago now blazing. She focused, remembering Kale's guidance, Dorian's teachings, and Riven's harsh lessons. The energy flowed through her, responding to her will, bending the shadows around her. The spectral wolves lunged, and Alara moved instinctively. Magic shot from her hands, forming a protective barrier that held the wolves at bay. She felt the strain, the exhaustion, but also the exhilaration of power she had never known. Kale and Dorian fought beside her, their strength and skill complementing her magic. Riven circled, striking with precision, his movements almost like a dance. Together, they formed an unbreakable circle of power. When the last wolf dissolved into mist, the forest grew silent again. Alara sank to her knees, panting, her body trembling. She had done it. She had fought, and she had survived. And in that moment, she realized something profound. She was no longer just a girl the pack had chosen to sacrifice. She was a force to be reckoned with. The three alphas gathered around her, each showing their reaction in a different way. Kale knelt beside her, his hand brushing hers in quiet relief. Dorian's eyes held a sharp respect. And Riven simply watched, his expression unreadable. But there was something in his gaze that made her shiver. "You are stronger than any of us expected," Kale said softly. "Stronger than the forest itself. But this is only the beginning." Dorian's lips curved in a small, approving smile. "And stronger than the pack can understand. You must continue to learn, continue to grow, or the next challenge may not be so forgiving." Riven finally spoke, his voice low and deliberate. "You have awakened. But remember this: power can protect, but it can also destroy. And the forest, The forest always demands a price. Ilara looked at them all, her chest still heaving. She felt fear, yes, but also a strange thrill. For the first time, she was not powerless. She had a choice. She had control. And she would use it not just to survive, but to determine her own destiny. The night was far from over. The red moon hung high in the sky, casting eerie light across the temple ruins. Shadows moved, whispering of dangers yet to come. And deep in the forest, something older, darker, and more dangerous than any spectral wolf watched her. Ilara knew that she had survived the first test. But the true battle was only beginning. Between the three alphas, the forest, and the ancient curse that had chosen her, she would have to fight, learn, and grow faster than she had ever imagined. As she stood, feeling the pulse of her power in her veins, she realized one terrifying and thrilling truth. No one, neither Kael, nor Dorian, nor Riven, could claim her yet. She was hers alone, and she would fight to remain that way. But the forest whispered again, darker this time, more insistent. And Ilara understood. The greatest challenge of all was coming. A force beyond the alphas, beyond the pack, beyond even the forest itself, would soon demand her full strength. And when it came, she would have to decide not only how to survive, but who she could trust, and who could truly stand by her side. The forest was silent in a way that made the skin crawl. No wind rustled the leaves. No birds stirred. Even the moon seemed hesitant, casting a pale, uneasy glow over the ruins of the ancient temple. Ilara stood in the center, her heart pounding, her magic still thrumming through her veins. She could feel it pulsing, alive, demanding something she did not yet understand. Kael, Dorian, and Riven flanked her, each standing alert, senses straining. The three alphas had fought beside her, trained her, and argued over her. But tonight, there would be no argument. Tonight, survival and choice would be tested beyond anything they had faced. The forest grows restless, Kael said, his voice low, yet steady. It knows the power within you. It knows the curse is near. We must be ready for whatever comes. Ilara nodded, though her hands shook slightly. I feel it, she said. Something is coming. Bigger than the wolves. Bigger than the shadows. Something older. Dorian's sharp gaze swept the temple ruins. This is no ordinary test, he said. The curse is ancient. It will not forgive mistakes, and it will not wait for hesitation. You must be ready to act with your full strength. Riven, as always, stayed silent, leaning slightly against a crumbling stone wall. His dark eyes studied her. Unreadable. But the faintest hint of concern lingered there. Power without control is dangerous, he murmured. And yet, you have survived every test so far. You may survive this one too. Before Ilara could respond, the air shifted. Shadows lengthened unnaturally, stretching across the temple floor. The forest itself seemed to lean closer, watching, whispering. A low, guttural growl reverberated through the ruins, followed by a flash of dark light. From the shadows, it emerged. A colossal figure, taller than any man, cloaked in darkness, its form shifting between smoke and flesh. Eyes burned like molten gold. The forest had sent its ultimate guardian, or perhaps its punishment. Ilara froze. The energy inside her surged uncontrollably, reacting to the presence of the being. She could feel her magic trying to fight against the shadow, to protect her and the alphas. She looked at Kael, Dorian, and Riven, all poised for battle. Their forms tense, muscles coiled like springs. Stand behind me, Kael commanded. No matter what happens, stay close. We face this together. Dorian's hands glowed faintly, weaving patterns in the air. She must act, he said. Her power will determine the outcome. Riven's voice was soft, almost a whisper, but it carried authority. Trust yourself, Elara. Trust the fire within. It will guide you. The shadow moved forward, a wave of darkness rolling like a tide across the temple floor. It attacked with a speed and strength that none of them could match alone. Kale leapt forward, blocking with his massive frame, his strength and skill holding the being back for a moment. Dorian struck with precision. Magical energy slashing through the air, Riven circled, striking with deadly accuracy, forcing the shadow to split its attention. Elara felt the fire inside her rage. She did not think. She did not hesitate. She lifted her hands, and energy poured out like sunlight, breaking through clouds. It wrapped around the shadow, pushing it back, forcing it to retreat. But the creature was relentless. Every strike, every push, every burst of energy was met with resistance. "Keep pushing," Kale shouted, his muscles straining. "You can do this, Elara. Trust yourself." She could feel their voices, their presence, their strength flowing into her. It was more than magic, it was connection, bond, and trust. Her power became sharper, stronger, responding to their energy. The shadow howled, the sound vibrating through her bones. But she held her ground. Dorian's voice rang out, guiding her. And then Riven stepped closer, his dark eyes meeting hers. For the first time, he smiled slightly. "You are not just a girl anymore," he said. "You are a force the forest cannot ignore." Elara inhaled deeply. She focused on the rhythm of her power, on the flow of the energy around her, on the bond she felt with the three alphas. She raised her hands, and a wave of energy, bright and pure, erupted from her. It wrapped around the shadow, compressing it, pushing it toward the ground. The creature roared, but the energy was stronger. It shattered, breaking into mist that dissolved into the night. The forest exhaled, the tension leaving the air like fog lifting in the morning. Silence returned. The moonlight shone on Elara, highlighting her wide, awe-filled eyes and trembling hands. She had done it. She had survived the final test. Kale rushed to her side, pulling her into a protective embrace. "You did it!" he said, his voice choked with relief. "You survived everything!" Dorian approached, bowing his head slightly. Riven lingered, shadows playing across his face, but there was pride in his gaze. "You are yours now," he said. "No one can claim you except yourself. And that is your true strength." Elara looked at them all, her chest heaving, her mind racing. The alphas had fought beside her, argued over her, and challenged her. They had trained her, guided her, and protected her. And yet, she was not theirs, not fully. She belonged to herself, to her own choice, her own destiny. For the first time, she realized something she had never known. Power without choice was meaningless. Strength without freedom was empty. And love, true love, was not possession. It was respect, trust, and shared journey. Kale, ever the protector, stepped forward and took her hand. "Whatever you choose," he said, "I will stand by your side. Not to claim you, but to protect you." Dorian's gaze softened, a rare expression breaking through his calculating demeanor. "And I," he said, "will stand with you to guide and teach, if you desire. But I will not command, and I will not force." Riven finally moved closer, his shadowed presence warming slightly. "And I will watch," he said quietly, "and challenge you, when needed. But never to control, only to ensure you never doubt yourself again." Elara's heart swelled with emotion. She had feared being claimed, feared being used, feared being sacrificed. But now, standing in the heart of the forest, surrounded by those who had fought for her survival and respected her strength, she felt something she had never felt before. Choice. Freedom. and belonging not to anyone but herself. The red moon began to fade, replaced by the soft silver of dawn. Light filtered through the broken trees, illuminating the temple ruins, the alphas, and Elara herself. The forest was still alive, still whispering, but now it felt protective, reverent, as if acknowledging her victory, her growth, and her destiny. Elara breathed deeply, feeling the pulse of her power settling, flowing through her veins like a river at peace. She knew the journey was not over. There would be challenges, trials, and dangers yet to come. But she also knew she was ready. She had fought, she had survived, and she had chosen. Kale, Dorian, and Riven stood around her, not as rivals tonight, but as allies, witnesses, and protectors. Each had their own path, their own desires, but none could claim her without her consent. And that, she realized, was the most powerful magic of all. The forest seemed to breathe around them, leaves rustling softly. The air filled with a sense of quiet victory. Elara looked at the three alphas, then at the rising sun, and smiled faintly. She had faced the darkness, faced the curse, faced her own fears, and emerged stronger, wiser, and free. The pack would survive. The forest would endure. And Elara would no longer be a pawn of fate. She would be its master. But as the first rays of sunlight touched the temple, a faint whisper echoed through the ruins. The forest had not finished its work. There were still mysteries, still shadows, still choices to make. And Elara knew, deep in her heart, that this was only the beginning of a story that would stretch far beyond the forest, beyond the pack, beyond even herself. She turned to the three alphas, each standing tall, powerful, and aware of the bond they now shared, not one of ownership, but of respect, trust, and unspoken promise. "Whatever comes next," she said, her voice steady, "we face it together. But remember this, I choose my path, and no one else will decide it for me." Kale nodded, Dorian bowed slightly, and Riven simply smiled, a rare and fleeting gesture. The three alphas had fought to claim her, but she had claimed herself, and in doing so, she had awakened a power and a freedom no curse, no forest, no pack, and no shadow could ever take away. The forest exhaled one last time, the sunlight warming the ruins, and Elara felt the strength of the world itself flowing through her. She was no longer just a girl chosen for sacrifice. She was a force of her own making, a spark of magic, courage, and choice in a world that had demanded obedience. And as the alphas stood beside her, she knew one truth above all. She had survived, she had grown, and she had chosen, and nothing could ever take that away.